Chapter 7. It Takes Two. At first, Twilight had been eager to explain about her history in Camelot, her relationship with the princess, for fear that Tracy would think she was boasting. But by the time dinner that evening was over, she was glad to have gotten it out of the way. That story marked only the first of Twilight's recounts, though. Tracy seemed eager to hear more, and Twilight was all too happy to share. Over the next few days, Twilight told more of how she had come to stay in Ponyville, how she had grown closer to her friends, and so their adventures thereafter. It seems like she had at least 26 of those adventures to talk about. 28 if you count Season 2 premiere. Oh, yeah, that's right. Tracy's not here to correct me. Hey, Tom!
Yes, you called.
Want to do a sketch with me about how I messed with the calculations?
I would, but remember, you have me, a Goomba, trying to clean up this place, when I, as a Goomba, mind you, have no hands.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's the problem with sending Tracy away, folks. I have no one to do back and forth sketches with. Well, might as well continue. They spoke over meals, whilst walking around town, or sometimes just when they were sitting in the library. And even though Twilight was doing most of the talking, she had to admit that she was enjoying herself. Tracy was a good audience when she wasn't being Trixie. By Thursday morning, though, when Twilight stepped out the door behind the show mare, she wasn't sure she could call it anymore, having seen so many sides of her over the past week. But which, if any, were acts, and what sort of signs of the real Trixie? Could you walk any slower? Teased Trixie. Twilight found herself trotting down the middle of the trail through town, lagging behind Trixie, whose cape was blowing softly in the wind. She shook her head and hurried to catch up. I'm so sorry, I was just thinking. Trixie rolled her eyes. Yes, you do that a lot. Twilight got there. You say that like it's a bad thing. Trixie gave a little chuckle at the joke, whilst Twilight just smiled beside herself. A strange thought crossed her mind as they walked side by side down the street. Being with Trixie was becoming more and more like being with a friend. As hospital tent came to down, Trixie began to slow down. Twilight picked up on that hesitation, but she chose not to say anything. If Trixie was nervous, she wouldn't want Twilight to know that. Well, Twilight, you asked for this. There's something sweet and almost kind, but she was mean and she was coarse and unrefined. But now she's dear and so unsure. I wonder why I didn't see it there before. She glanced this way, and I thought I saw. When we touched, she didn't shudder at all. No, it can't be. I'll just ignore. But then she's never looked at me that way before. New and a bit alarming. Who'd have ever thought that this could be true? That she's no Princess Charming, but there's something in her that I simply didn't see. Well, who would have thought I've lost my soul? Well, who could have known? And who indeed could have guessed that they come together on their own? It's so peculiar. We'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. A few days more. There may be something there that wasn't there before. Thank God Trixie isn't here. She would have killed me for that one. Nurse Redheart poked her head out from under the flap as they approached. When she caught sight of them, she smiled warmly. Good morning, you two. She chirped, sliding out of the tent. No problems, I trust? No, said Twilight brightly. We're just here for our checkup. The nurse creased her brows, smirked a little. I think you mean Trixie's checkup. Twilight drew back a little as her face grew warm under the nurse's and Trixie's gaze. Oh, of course, I just... The nurse chuckled, and Trixie smirked as well, which made Twilight all the more embarrassed. Why is everyone picking on me lately? Maybe you should try thinking before you speak. Twilight Sparkle, Trixie suggested. Or not. Trixie loves seeing you embarrassed. Twilight saw her glare. The nurse covered her mouth with hope to stop the laughter. Oh, all right, you two. Come on inside, we'll see about getting the cast off. The inside of the tent smelled just as strongly as ever, but Twilight managed to keep from gagging this time around. Seeing Trixie follow the nurse up to one of the beds, which, at the nurse's request, Trixie sat down upon. You know, I just thought about it. But why are they in a tent? Plainfield has a hospital. Twilight planted herself on the ground beside her. Just a moment, said Nurse Redheart, sliding over to grab her clipboard from a nearby stool before setting it down on the bed. Okay, are you ready? Yes, said Trixie firmly. Trixie thinks he's had about enough of this eating piece of... Hold still, said the nurse, leaning in to bite down on the cast's knot. With practiced ease, he lifted the cast away and placed it carefully on the ground, whilst Trixie let out a quiet sigh of relief. Itching gone? Asked Twilight with a smirk. Yes, it is, said Trixie contentedly. Okay, Trixie, I want you to take it slowly this time, said the nurse. Trixie rolled her eyes at the tone. I'm serious. One thing at a time, okay? Trixie understands, she huffed. The nurse smiled and glanced over her clipboard. Good. Now I'd like you to flex your leg, please. Trixie, eyes closed, focused on her foreleg, did exactly as she was told. She slowly extended all the way, without any obvious trouble, and brought it back to sit beside her chest. There, said Trixie. Excellent, cried Nurse Redheart. Next, I'd like you to stand up on your straight good hooves. Not too quickly. See, as Trixie practically jumped from the bed, with another hoof, Trixie rose to her hooves as slowly as she could manage without falling over. The nurse nodded approval. And now the tricky part. I need you to touch your foreleg to the ground. Trixie hesitated, and Twilight had to admit being a little worried herself. It might hurt a little, the nurse admitted. A little? Said Trixie, drawing her a glare. Twilight offered a warm smile. You could do it, Trixie. Taken by surprise, Trixie gave her a puzzled look. Well, of course Trixie can do it, she said. It's just... Oh, never mind. Let's just get this over with. Trixie took a sharp breath and held it as cautiously over her hoof. Twilight, despite what she said, found herself biting her lip as she watched. Trixie braced herself with one eye closed as the hoof neared the ground. Clop. Twilight cringed, expecting another pained yelp, but it didn't come. Trixie slowly opened her other eye and tapped the ground again. Nothing. She let out her breath and turned to smile at Twilight. Nothing? Said the nurse, raising her eyebrow. Nothing, said Trixie proudly. Nurse Redheart beamed at her. That's wonderful. That means we're ready to start with your therapy. Trixie's smile faded. You mentioned that before, Twilight mused aloud. Well, what kind of therapy are you talking about? Nurse Redheart removed the top page from her clipboard and put it to one side. Physical therapy, she said. Might be some time before you can walk on your own again, Trixie. But we can start working towards that right away. Trixie furrowed her brow. What do you mean? It doesn't hurt to touch the ground anymore. Why shouldn't Trixie be able to walk? I think you'll agree that just touching the ground isn't a good approximation for the pressure of walking, said the nurse sweetly. Trixie shut her mouth. So, what do we need to do? Asked Twilight. Nurse Redheart smiled at her. Put simply, you need to practice. She jerked her hoof forward a few times. A little exercise every day will help your leg heal up properly, Trixie. But, see what dice with Trixie. You're going to need some help. Trixie scoffed. Please. Trixie thinks she can manage a little exercise. The nurse shook her head. Trixie, if you try to do this alone, you're just going to make things worse. The safest thing to do is to let Twilight here give you a helping hoof. Me? Said Twilight. What can I do? Later. Trixie is doing it. Twilight rolled her eyes as the two of them made their way steady towards home, Trixie keeping her foreleg held close to her chest. Come on, said Twilight. It's not really that bad. Trixie scoffed and looked at her sidelong. Not that bad. Trixie has a reputation to uphold Twilight Sparkle. Besides, anybody who saw would think we were... She broke off and looked away, but Twilight didn't have to see her face to know she was blushing. Look, if you don't want to do it, I'm not going to make you, sighed Twilight. But shouldn't we at least try? Don't you want to be able to walk properly again? It's not that! Snapped Trixie. Just drop it, please. Trixie will manage on her own. Twilight frowned at her, but Nurse Redheart. Trixie fixed her with a glare. I know what she said. Twilight pursed her lips, worried that Trixie was going to get angry again. The glare was only lasted a few seconds, though, before she huffed and looked away. Trixie will manage, she said. Once. Twilight rolled her eyes. It was a moment before she actually registered what Trixie had said, and turned too late. Trixie placed her bad forehoof firmly on the ground, and after her brief cringe, looked up at Twilight triumphantly. See, she said. Twilight still held her mouth open, ready to speak, but couldn't find any words. Then Trixie took a step forwards. Twilight gasped and died to the ground just in time to cushy Trixie's fall. The showman flopped unceremoniously over Twilight's back with a pain. Oof! Groaning, Twilight carefully pushed herself to support the weight. You were saying? She grumbled. Trixie's head rolled around beside Twilight's. She saw a tear rolling down her cheek. Ow! Trixie muttered through clenched teeth. NPC drove any trace of spite from Twilight's mind in an instant. I'm sorry, Trixie, I don't. Trixie interrupted, keeping her eyes closed. Just don't. Take me back to the library. Please. The shame in her voice was unmistakable. It was a disturbing thing to hear, considering how proud Trixie usually was. Twilight wanted to hear some more words of sympathy, but even as she couldn't think of anything, Trixie really didn't want to hear it. One side, Twilight began shambling onwards. Trixie's forelegs slung on her back. Twilight stared up at the darkened roof of her loft, with a firm frown set her face. Her eyes were raking, and the pillow atop her chest did little to comfort her, as did the mattress beneath her. Spike's snoring didn't help much either. With a huff, she rolled onto her side and gazed out of the window into the starry sky above. She idly started naming the constellations in her head, hoping for a sheep counting effect that never came. She frowned as her eyes reached the last one. That's not right, she muttered. Celestia's wing has 14 stars, not 9. She craned her neck to get a better look, but she just overbalanced and fell to the floor with a yelp. Twilight stood up, crumbling under her breath as she rubbed her nose. She pulled herself up to the windowsill, braced her face against the glass and squinted. There were still only 11 out of 14 stars. Compulsiveness taking over, she growled, trying down to the balcony floor. She nuzzled it over and slid it out, taking care to close it quietly as to not wake Spike. Surprisingly, the night air was not unwelcoming. There was a crisp but gentle breeze that made inside the library seem terribly stuffy. She didn't take a moment to enjoy it, though, instead striding right up to the edge of the balcony and casting her gaze about for Celestia's wing. Aha! She said, pausing her hoe to a point. 12, 13, 14! With a non-satisfied smile, she made her way to go back inside, only to stop when something caught her eye. A pale flash of light from the town below. Curious, she peeked out over the railing and, to her surprise, she saw a unicorn in the street below. The light from said unicorn's horn was subtle, but unmistakable in the dark of the night. Trixie? Twilight muttered, squinting down. As her eyes adjusted, she could make out the familiar, starring pattern of Trixie's keep. What's he doing out there? Twilight knelt down and poked her nose through the gap in the railing, thinking it best that Trixie didn't know she was spying on her. It wasn't really spying, of course. She was just checking up on Trixie to make sure she was okay. Twilight gave a firm nod and bumped her snout on the floor. She had to bite her lip to keep from cursing as she massaged her nose and forced herself to focus on Trixie instead. It wasn't hard to figure out what she was doing, stumbling around and hopping back with a squeak every now and then. Despite the nurse's advice, Trixie was trying to do it alone, and it was working about as well as expected. Every yelp for Trixie made Twilight feel that much worse, until finally she couldn't stand to watch any longer. Twilight rose to her host and took a breath to call out, Sad, isn't it? Twilight jumped back with a start as she noticed the tall, radiant pony beside her. Princess Celestia? The princess offered a warm smile. Twilight was too stunned to figure out whether she could smile back, how deeply, or simply turn tail and run. How long have you been standing there? She asked. Celestia shook her head gently. Not long. I hope you don't mind my dropping in on you like this. No, of course not! Twilight said quickly. Even as he spoke, she found herself glancing down at Trixie, but strangely didn't seem to notice their voices. You know, seeing Celestia show up here talking to Twilight, a part of me should be a little grumpy that this should have been one of Twilight's friends. The other part of me is laughing because this just takes what friendship is timeless said about Celestia not visiting, crumbles it up, kicks it to the curb, and throws it out the window. The princess followed her eyes. She can't hear us, Twilight. I mean, sir. Twilight felt her face slowly red. I know how this must look, but it looks like you're watching out for your friend. There's no need to be ashamed of that, said the princess, warming. Her tone was soothing, as always, and Twilight let herself relax a little. Celestia took a step closer to the railing and peered down at Trixie. She certainly looks a pitiful sight. Twilight swallowed, knowing how much Trixie would hate to hear the word pitiful. As unkind as it sounded, though, it was true. Frowning, Twilight stepped beside the princess to watch Trixie again. She's very proud, said Twilight. Too proud to let me help. Trixie stumbled and fell, but pushed herself a second later. But she's strong, too. Maybe she could do it on her own. The princess nodded slowly. Perhaps, but determination isn't always enough. Sometimes, even the strongest of us need a helping hand. She turned to smile at Twilight. Do you remember? Twilight's heart filled with warmth at the memory. She returned to smile twofold before calling out to Celestia's neck. I remember, Princess. For what felt like minutes, she reveled in a warm embrace, enjoying the rhythmic rising and falling that came with Celestia's breathing. She almost forgot how fluffy her coat was. Celestia's chest rattled with a twinkling chuckle. Twilight snapped back and blushed, still aware of how long she held the embrace. The princess raised a gentle hope to Twilight's left to preempt the apology. After a moment, Twilight settled back for the drawing back, and then offering a sheepish grin. The princess just smiled. After a few moments, though, her silence was starting to get unsettling. Princess, why are you here? Asked Twilight. Not that I mind. Celestia cocked her head to the side in mock puzzlement. Are you saying I need a reason to come visit my little sorceress? No. Look at how Twilight learns via reading and all that. She's definitely a wizard. Now I do have a D&D character who is a sorcerer. Oh, goodness, no. Sorry, I said quickly. You can come and visit whenever you want. I didn't mean to. Celestia chuckled again. Your letter made me curious, Twilight. I had to come and see this Trixie for myself. My letter? Or the wording of your letter, I suppose, said the princess, looking up to the sky. Twilight kept her brow furrowed. Celestia met her eyes again with a smile. Oh, don't mind me, Twilight. I've just gotten thoughtful in my old age. Twilight shook her head when she registered the words. Don't be silly, princess. You're not old. Celestia's laughter rang out through the night air. Twilight couldn't help but join her after a moment. When the mirth finally died down, Celestia brushed her neck against Twilight's. That's very kind of you, dear, she chuckled. She pulled back and returned to look towards Trixie again, leaving Twilight with a smile that quickly faded to a thoughtful frown. Princess, can I ask your advice? She turned her eyes to Trixie. Do you think that, in this case, some tough love might be prudent? Celestia chuckled again. I love it when you do that, she said. When she saw Twilight's frown, though, she hummed and thought, You want me to tell you whether you should force your help on Trixie? Twilight glanced down at the floor, then nodded. I'm not sure that's my place to decide, said the princess. I know it's my decision, said Twilight. But I honestly don't know what's best for her. The princess looked at her. If you had to decide right now, what would you do? Right now? Twilight looked up to the sky and thought, I don't know. Then perhaps you should wait a while, said Celestia. She unfurled her wing and pressed it against Twilight's face. Get to sleep, my dear. Perhaps things will be clearer in the morning. But, hearing Trixie yelp, Twilight turned to see that she had collapsed again. It took a moment, but she did indeed rise up to keep trying. No, you're right, said Twilight. I have to let her try, at least. Celestia smiled at her. You've come a long way since moving to Ponyville, Twilight Sparkle. I know I said so before, but I'm very proud of you. Thank you, Princess. She gave Celestia one last nuzzle on the neck. Would you like to come in for tea, or... The princess shook her head. I would love to, but I must really get back. Perhaps another time. Twilight nodded understandingly, and Celestia unfurled her great white wings and beat them, sending a gust of warm wind over the balcony. Goodbye, Princess, said Twilight, bowing as low as Celestia rose in the air. I'll let you know what I decide. Then I look forward to your letter, as always, said the princess with a smile. With that, she beat her wings again, rising higher. Once more, then she was gone. Twilight chanced another look down at Trixie. She wasn't trying to walk anymore. She sat down on the ground beneath the balcony, staring down at her host in silence. Twilight wasn't able to make out anything more, but she found herself biting her lip all the same. The urge to go down and talk to her was almost overpowering, and, not for the princess's words, I'd certainly have done so, but... Sleep, Twilight muttered. She nodded firmly to reassure herself, then finally tore away her eyes from Trixie and headed back inside. With the princess's blessing and the pleasant memory of her warm touch, it wasn't hard for Twilight to find sleep that night. Once she tried down the stairs the following morning, it was with a smile on her face and a lazy flounder in her step. As usual, the princess was right. A good night's sleep was done wonders to improve her mood, and she was sure that, as soon as she had breakfast, she'd be able to think much more clearly. Or maybe that's just my stomach talking, Twilight mused, allowing herself a quiet giggle as she came out into the lobby. She stopped at the base of the stairs and did a double take towards one of the reading tables. Across her wrist was sprawled a very bedraggled-looking blue unicorn. Trixie was perched vaguely atop one of the stools. One forehead clutched to her chest, whilst the other reached out towards the middle of the table. Her mane was unkempt, half covering her face, while the other half was thrown in front of her. Even the cape that she had draped over her had a blanket and looked messy. It wasn't hard to guess she stayed up for a long time the night before. Twilight cocked her head as she watched Trixie's sleeping eyes. Her breath was soft and steady, but her face showed no trace of the faint but content smile that Twilight had seen before. Even so, it seemed that Trixie couldn't help but look adorable in her sleep, no matter how exhausted she was. Gripped by a flash of brilliance, Twilight turned on the spot and crept into the kitchen, early setting about making breakfast. She emerged barely 10 minutes later with an impressive stack of pancakes and settled down gently on top of Trixie's table. That did the trick. The sleepy Trixie took a breath of the food and let out a silent sigh through her nose. Almost immediately, her mouth curled up into a smile, whilst Twilight returned twofold. Deciding to make the most out of her flash of brilliance, Twilight let down until she was only a few inches from Trixie's snoot. Twilight opened her mouth to whisper, but closed it immediately, in favor of a better idea. Slowly, she shifted over and pressed her muzzle against Trixie's shoulder. As Twilight pulled back, Trixie mumbled something and her eyes fluttered, sending an electric tingle down Twilight's back. Trixie's eyes drifted open, they settled upon Twilight, who met the gaze with a smile. As she'd been hoping, the smile on Trixie's face didn't fade. At least, it not right away. Good morning, said Twilight. Trixie followed her stare at the pancakes beside her. Morning, she muttered, eyes still half-lidded. A moment later, she blinked away to sleep and refocused on Twilight, smile disappearing in an instant. Morning! Twilight nodded, gave a little giggle. Morning. Trixie lifted herself upright atop her stool, her face screwing up with effort. How long have you been watching Trixie? Not long, said Twilight, shaking her head. But I have to admit, you do look kind of pretty with your mane like that. Trixie furrowed her brow for a moment, then gave a huff and rested on the table. Oh, shut up. Hey! I'm limited to one romantic duet song per chapter here, Vic. I've already wasted one of them. Well, that'll teach you not to stay up so late, said Twilight brightly. Not that I wanted to talk. Trixie groaned. Ugh, it's too early for your cheeriness. It's giving Trixie a headache. Twilight leaned in and nudged the plate towards her. Will pancakes help? They're cinnamon apple. There was a short silence before Trixie lifted her head again to regard said pancakes, as to deciding whether or not it was worth the effort to wake up properly and eat them. Fine, she said at last. She dragged the plate towards her with magic, and sat up as Twilight smiled and took a seat across from her. She waited until Trixie had taken a few bites of her first pancake before clearing her throat. Ahem. So, how's your leg doing this morning? It aches, said Trixie, voicing it half-heartedly. But so does the rest of me. I'm not surprised, said Twilight, when she saw Barefoot. Trixie gave her a questioning look, in the face of which Twilight quickly corrected herself. Well, I mean, with all the walking we've been doing lately, it's gotta be difficult with just 3 legs. Trixie flicked the back of her mane. It's nothing Trixie can't handle. The words had hardly left her mouth before she shied away from Twilight's gaze, a gesture not overlooked by Twilight herself. Have you given any more thought to, you know, said Twilight. Trixie blinked but didn't turn her head. Yes. And, said Twilight, leaning in hopefully. There was another silence until finally, Trixie looked up at her. Trixie, you look alone. Twilight let her head droop backwards and groaned. Do I have to beg? Trixie raised an eyebrow. I'm not going to beg, Trixie, Twilight deadpanned. Trixie shook her head. It doesn't matter, anyway. Trixie has a reputation to protect. She isn't going to go parading around town with her leg around you for all to see. Twilight huffed and let her gaze fall to the table as Trixie took a narrow bite of pancake. She's going on to stubborn. Her leg's never going to get fixed. She mused sadly. There has to be some way I could get her to. Twilight looked up, eyebrows raising in surprise as an idea struck her. What if you didn't have to? Said Twilight. She said. Trixie, mouth still full, simply creased her brow at Twilight. I mean, what if they didn't see us? Trixie swallowed. What are you talking about? Well, ponies hardly ever come in here. This place is practically private, so why don't we just practice in here, where no pony can see? No pony, maybe, said Trixie. But in case you've forgotten, you're not the only one who lives here. What about the Dragonling? Twilight got her head. Spike? Oh, I could send him off to do some things in town. I'm sure he'd be all too happy to spend some time helping around at Rarity's house. Trixie curled her lips ever so slightly. Sensing her fins, Twilight pressed on. And besides, we could always go out at night. We could walk down by Flare-Side's cottage. No pony ever goes down there after dark. You put a lot of thought into this, haven't you? Said Trixie, though her voice betrayed she was considering it. Just one more push. I know how strong you are, Trixie. You could do this on your own if you wanted to. All I'm saying is you don't have to. She flashed Trixie her most charming smile. I can help. Trust me. Trixie was silent for a long time, gazing thoughtfully to the side all the while. When she finally looked up at Twilight, it was with a searching frown. Not because Trixie's too weak, she muttered. Twilight laid out a hoof to rest atop Trixie's. No, because I'm your friend, and friends help each other. Trixie stared at her as she took in the words. A faint smile crept onto her lips. Friends! A moment later, Trixie quickly shook her head, pulled her head out of Twilight's grip, cleared her throat with authority. All right, Twilight Sparkle. You make a good case, she said. Twilight's eyes lit up with hope. So, Trixie, let me take your pancake fork and wait in front of Twilight. We'll start after breakfast. As soon as Trixie closed her eyes to enjoy her next bite of pancake, Twilight grinned wide and clapped her host to get her plate joyfully.